So this is a pencil injector that is used on small high-speed engines. And it consists of a needle valve, a spindle, which is a direct connection between the needle valve and the, which will come up later, it's called the valve lift adjustment screw, which is this one right here. Okay, so the first step we do, this is used to adjust the nozzle opening pressure right here, this screw. It has two sides to it. It will have one with a screwdriver slot so that you can actually put a screwdriver on there and rotate it if it gets too tight. And then this is the bottom one that will hit the washer that'll cushion it between the spring and the needle valve. So to assemble this, we'll take the needle valve right here. When the fuel comes into the pressure chamber, this is the pressure chamber right here. You can see it tapered, which gives it a pushing effect, gives the fuel a pushing effect on that area. So that area is going to be fed by the fuel coming in through here, running through here, drill passage, then that pressure chamber is right here. So we do that, then we're going to put the next connecting part, the spindle. Just a little piece of solid metal with a couple of interesting parts. It has a reset area here for the head of the needle to sit in there. And then on this side, it has a machined area for this spring to sit on it, like so. Okay? So to install this, sometimes if you go straight down like this, it'll flip off, and it's possible that it could end up like this. Just the opposite of what you want. So you want to put it on there, make sure that it's sitting properly, flip this upside down a bit at an angle, maintaining that angle, and so that your piece there won't flip. You grab the valve lift adjustment pin or screw, put it in there. Now you know that that spindle stayed in the correct position. Now you get your washer, you will put it in there, making sure that it's seated properly. That hole is where this pin is going to go through. It'll find its way through there, hitting the top of that spindle. Next, you will get the pressure adjustment screw. This is what you set your nozzle opening pressure, or the pressure at which the needle valve will come off of its seat. Tighten it up. Okay, so now you know that this part is completely assembled, and you will wait to put this final adjustment. We'll just put this to the side. Now we're going to go and set our nozzle opening pressure. We're going to bring it over to the pop tester, and we're going to connect it to the high pressure pipe. Now remember, these injectors come from the PLN type of a system. PLN stands for pump, line, and nozzle. So the high pressure pump, like an inline pump, will cause it to create pressure, push it past the delivery valve into this high pressure line, goes inside here into that pressure chamber inside of the injector and build the pressure enough to overcome that spring. So the more you tighten this up, this NOP adjustment screw, the higher the pressure it will take to overcome the spring. So now we have to tighten this nut and line. So it's a 3/4 plus a 9/16. We'll get it, and for your own safety, I like to teach the students that that they need to practice safety, right? So I try to teach them about aligning them something similar to this, so that they can just squeeze and it will tighten things up. Okay, there's a little bit of a angle there, but if you go like this and just squeeze them, you can really tighten it up. And it's a safer way than doing this. You can be pushing to tighten it up, and if for some reason it slips, guess where your hand's gonna go? It's gonna go right there. Okay, so now that we have it mounted onto the pop tester, the pump, we need to see where it's popping right now. Okay, what pressure is it pumping or popping at? So right now it's about 1,000 psi. Obviously, there's two things that affect the atomization of the fuel, and one is the size of the drilled hole on the injector, and the other one is the pressure. So in order to create pressure, we need to reduce the flow. So that's what this screw here does. As it puts pressure on the spring, it makes the spring a lot more tighter, or compresses it, so that overcoming that spring is going to be the challenge of the fuel now. So we go over here. So we're at about 2,400 psi. We're about 2,400. So these injectors mostly were within the range of about 17 to 2,200 psi. So for testing purposes, I tell the students set it to 2,000 psi. So we know it's a 23. So we'll just back off like less than a quarter of a turn, and we'll try again. Just a little more in the reverse tension here, pressure, right about there. And that looks pretty good right there. So there's a little vibration. This is not an oil-filled gauge, so it doesn't cushion the vibrations. If it was, you would see that it'd be around 2,000 right there. So that's what you would do with a pencil injector. That's how you set it up, assemble it, and set it up. If you worked at a fuel shop, then you would put a jam nut on there that goes on here so that this would not back up, and you leave the nozzle opening pressure at that point. So now this is the valve lift adjustment screw. It's got an Allen head in here, and goes in here, right in the center. And I need we might have to cut this. Anyway, it comes in. We run it in all the way until it hits the top of the needle valve. We run it in all the way. Okay, so you run this down all the way until it bottoms out at the top of the needle valve. So you would turn it and turn it and turn it until it stops, and right there it hit bottom. And to check for bottom, that is really pushing on the needle valve, if I'm right, it's not going to let the needle valve come up, so we should have no injection. And yes sir, we're up about 35, close to 3,500 psi. At the same time, we're going to clean the tip here, and since we know that this is going to open up at 2,000, we're going to kick it up to 2,000. We're going to hold it for about 10 seconds. And then we are going to check for any seepage. There should be. Drops are not permittable, but a little seepage like that is okay, because it's never going to be 10 seconds right before NOP. Okay? So that right there, you know that the seat is good, the needle valve and seat are good. And so now we're going to, the manufacturers recommend some, it's called valve lift adjustments. It's different for each unit or each manufacturer. let's say this manufacturer, injector manufacturer, wants maybe 3 turns back. So what these 3, that's 1, 2, and 3. What this does is that now it pulled this pin back from on top of the needle valve. So when the needle valve opens up, it's only going to go so far up. That in turn is going to cause more resistance, and the pressure will be higher to force the fuel out of the holes. Almost like a syringe. When you squeeze a syringe hard, it will cause resistance, and the spray will come out a lot faster and more in a mist form. So that's what's happening in here. As I mentioned earlier about tightening it by squeezing them together, well, to loosen it up and take it off, the opposite is true. Go opposite. If that's too much of an angle, rotate this one, and we go like so. By squeezing it now, you loosen it up, and it's a lot safer than pulling this way, because you will hurt yourself.